Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and I thought I'd do a follow-up on my no-till winter rye videos. I had 2 beds this year, or last fall, where I planted winter rye, and I used 2 different techniques to kill off the winter rye without having to till it in. This pea bed and another bed where I planted potatoes. So I'm going to show you how that's all worked out, and I'm going to share a couple other ideas I had about ways to implement this coming fall. So on this bed here, down the center, I flipped the sod over and planted peas. On the sides, I just smothered it out with these leaf bags, okay? And in a minute, I'm gonna plant I got some potatoes here to plant, and I'm gonna show you how easy it is to plant potatoes. It's about time. It's the middle of June now. It's not now or never for planting potatoes. I got lots of potatoes planted elsewhere in my garden, but this is the last place where I plan to plant them. I always like to plant a nice high trellis of peas, and potatoes on either side tends to work out perfectly. But let me show you the other bed first. So in this bed, all I did was cut the rye down low, dig little 5-inch holes and jam potatoes in them, and then cover it with leaves, okay? And once a week, I come around and I have the odd one that's poked the odd bit of grass that's poked its way up through. But it's hardly anything, right? Like once a week I spend 10 seconds pulling, so it really hasn't, it's just around the edges where a little bit of light can get through, right? But for the most part, it's worked perfectly, right? The potatoes have found their way up. This spot over there where it's bare, that's a shadier spot. So those potatoes are behind these ones. Right? You can literally tell, most light, highest potato, most light, lowest potato, least light, right? So you can see there's one here just starting to come up, right? And one here just finding its way through the leaves. And I put the leaves on thick, but the potatoes have no problem finding their way through. You can see another potato right over there in the corner, just starting to find its way up, okay? That's what's going on there. So this totally worked, and I would do it again for sure. Over here, I just put leaf bags down and put these pieces of wood on to hold it, keep it from blowing away. Okay, so just remove a little bit of this so you can see. So pull this back. Right, you can see there's lots of worms, right? Lots of worm activity, right? All the grass is completely dead. There's no weeds. It worked out perfectly. And this is just, all I got to do is pull this up and plant. Right, it's ready for planting potatoes. So I'm just going to do a little quick sped up sort of montage right now, showing you how easy it is to do that. I'm going to plant this whole thing out and mulch it, and I'll basically be done with that until September when it's time to harvest them. So let's get planting some potatoes. All right, that's done. Didn't take long. People always ask when I do this, how often do you water the potatoes? I don't. I'm not gonna do anything here. These are just gonna take care of themselves. I mean, I'm lucky. I, generally speaking, live somewhere where we get relatively regular rain. It's rare that it goes a month without raining. And it's even rare that it goes 2 weeks without some kind of rain. And we just got a ridiculous amount of rain very recently. So the soil's like wet. Like watering this wouldn't make any difference. The soil's already fully saturated with water. And the leaves I put on have been outside in the rain and stuff like that. So nothing needs to happen here. I'm not going to do anything until I pick these. And since I've got all this nice mulch on, and you notice how I just push the bags up against the peas. Why not? Right? It's all going to decompose anyway. Right? I want to just leave it right there, and that mulch is right at the base of the peas, and keeps weeds and all that sort of stuff under control right next to the peas. So that'll work out fine. I've used this technique for planting potatoes many times, so I'm sure it'll work. But this year is the first time I actually tried this trick with a winter rye bed, right? So I anticipate in about 3 weeks or so, maybe 4, these potatoes will push their way up. The leaves are going to go down somewhat, and the potatoes will find their way up through the leaves, no problem. Some of you might have noticed the potatoes on this side were kind of leggy, right? They had long eyes, right? It's just because of the way I stored them. I should have had them out. If you want to, if you buy your potatoes, and I got these in May, right? If you're going to hang on them for a month, and you don't want them to get long eyes like that, you got to put them in a window. Just get some egg cartons and stick them in a window. I forgot to do that. I just forgot about it. So they'll still grow when they're leggy like that. It's not optimal. They don't achieve their best results, but I had to plant them anyway, right? So they'll still be fine. I noticed I planted a number of different varieties of potato in here, but they'll all do just fine. Now let me show you the other idea I had for using the winter rye approach. Now this all requires some degree of foresight and planning, okay? But this is a large 8x8 bed where I'm growing squash, okay? Now, I don't like to grow things in the same place year after year, right? So I might grow them in a different bed next year. But the principle is the same. So when I planted these squash this year, this was all covered in weeds. And all I did was cover the whole thing in leaf bags, cut holes out of leaf bags, just clear the little area where the hole was of weeds and plant the plants. And I just let the bags smother out all the other weeds, okay? But I could see this working perfectly fine for winter rye, where, because you're only cultivating such a small proportion of the area, right? Where I would cut the rye down low, and then in the grid where I was going to plant the squash, it works for these things where they come up big, you can mulch the heck out of it, and they got all this foliage and they cover everything, right? So where I'm going to plant the squash, I would cut a little square sod and flip it over, right? And plant in that. And I anticipate that would work really, really well. So I might try that this fall. I plant some rye in a bed this fall with the plan for that to be a squash bed the following year. It works in these beds with the wooden border because it's just easier to control. I would not use the winter rye in a bed like this because everything gets in these cracks between the rocks. And I've only a small portion of my garden is made with these rocks. I love it. It's beautiful, and that's why I have it. And it lasts a long time. It doesn't cost anything. But you can just see the edges are just weed magnets, right? Always. Whereas, by contrast with the wooden beds, you still get some weeds around the edges, but it's just, you don't have it anywhere near the same situation, right? It doesn't do the same thing. Anyway, there you have it. A couple ways to make use of winter rye where you don't have to rototill it in or do all that by hand, right? Because it's labor intensive, and there's arguments that that's not the best thing in the world for the soil, but certainly easier, right? You think of the effort that was required to get the peas in this bed and then to get the potatoes in the bed. You think of the other bed where I planted the potatoes, where all I did was cut it down, jam the potatoes in, covered in leaves, right? Pretty easy, right? And all that rye, the grass, just becomes starved for light from being smothered out, and it just dies. And all the grass gets decomposed, and the nitrogen in it goes into the soil, and all that root mass, right, from the rye just becomes organic matter in your soil. So it turns the rye into fertilizer. So it works great. So I'm really happy with it, and I think I'm going to try it a bit, try some of that this fall. The only challenge I had with the winter rye is that I get chipmunks around here, and if they find the bed with the rye, they take it all. They take it all overnight. It just disappears. It could be voles, could be voles or chipmunks. They use the same tunnels anyway. But I mean, once those little rodents find that wonderful food source, rye, right? They just take it all and store it somewhere. And it doesn't take them long. They're really good at it. So last fall I planted rye in 3 beds. It grew in 2 of them, and the other one, it just vanished in one night. So just by sheer luck, they didn't notice the other 2 beds. If they'd noticed them, they would have all been gone. Hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. Check out my weekly column at maritimegardening.substack.com. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching. Hey, if you want to help support everything I'm doing here, go to Veseys.com to buy whatever you need for your garden this year. And use my coupon code GAVS23 to get free shipping as long as there's a pack of seeds in the order and there's no oversized items in the order. Check out the description box of this video for details. You can buy everything you need from Veseys. They have seeds, fruit bushes and trees, soil amendments, pest solutions, tools, clothing, and lots of other stuff too. So yeah, if you want to help support everything I'm doing here and they sell something you need, buy it from them using my coupon code. And happy gardening.